the Charleston County Board of Zoning Appeals, also known as the BZA. The board members who will hear your case tonight are seated to my right, Mr. Marchant, Mr. Freeman, Ms. Allison. To my left, Mr. Woodall, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Nelson. And I am Joe Boyk, and I'm the vice chair filling in for our chairman, Mr. Ray, who couldn't be with us tonight. Staff members here tonight are Ms. Sally Brooks, Mr. Joshua Downey, Ms. Savannah Murray, I don't see Mr. Thomas, and Ms. Jenny Working. Seated to my right is Mr. Kelvin Hughie, who is attorney for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Because the hearing tonight is a public fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and South Carolina Code 6-29-70. 15 days prior to this hearing, an announcement was printed in the Post and Courier. A sign was posted on or near designated property, and a notice was mailed to the applicant or the applicant's representative, to property owners within at least 300 feet of the property, and to parties in interest. Persons, organizations, and the news media that have requested declaration of our meeting have also been notified. Board members, the meeting notes from the January 10th, 2022 public hearing were mailed to you. Are there any changes? If not, may I have a motion to approve and a second? All right. Second. All right. Received a motion from Mr. Woodall, seconded by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion?
I don't think we have a quorum for the minutes.
Oh, we don't. Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Well, we will dispense with that and move on. We'll come back to it later if we get another one. All right. Our case rulings from this and any BZA meeting are available for public review and inspection during normal business hours at the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority on appeals of zoning-related administrative decisions. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged there is an error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by an administrative official in the administration or enforcement of any of the zoning-related regulations. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to overturn the decision of the planning director in an appeal. A special exception is an exception issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use in a specified location within a zoning district upon demonstrating that such use complies with all the conditions and standards specified by the Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, or ZELDR. The BZA must find that the special exception request meets all 6 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant the special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. A variance is a relaxation by the BZA of the dimensional regulations of the ordinance where such action will not be contrary to the public interest and where, owing to conditions peculiar to the property and not the results of actions or the situation of the applicant, a literal enforcement of this code would result in unnecessary and undue hardship, and such variance is consistent with Section 6-29-800 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find that the variance request meets all 7 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant the variance. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to grant a variance. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist the board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If the members of the BZA feel the need for further information to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It must be understood that the rules of your neighborhood or subdivision are binding, and that we can take no action that will negate their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented written information submitted to the staff by the applicant or the applicant's agent for each case. This information is now considered to be evidence and is entered into the permanent record of this body. It is assumed that it is complete, true, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data assembled by the staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the applicant's effect on surrounding property. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or to deny a special exception or variance request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. The BZA's final decision will be mailed within 10 working days of this public hearing. It will be mailed via certified mail to applicants and via U.S. mail to neighbor and community interest notice lists. If the applicant's request is approved, the applicant should contact the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department staff to discuss the next step in the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after this meeting, and a 1-year extension may be granted only if construction or development has commenced or is being diligently pursued. However, if an applicant's request is disapproved, and if the applicant wishes to appeal the decision to this board concerning the case, appeals must be addressed to the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that the appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of the board is mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit deprives the court of the jurisdiction to hear the matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All of the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence. And this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made either in writing or orally. Each person who wishes to address the board will be sworn in by the BZA secretary before they provide testimony or evidence. In order to expedite this procedure, those wishing to speak will please stand as a group at this time, and Mrs. Working will administer the oath.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I will say the oath and you will say I do. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you.
I will now call each case by the case number. Staff will present facts pertinent to the case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then call the applicant. The applicant will stand and state his or her name and current address for the record before presenting testimony pertinent to the case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then ask for all those speaking either in support or in opposition to the case, and they will follow the same procedure for identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes each. The applicant will then have a chance to reply to any opposition, limited to 2 additional minutes. And then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application stating specific findings of fact and conclusions of law. For tonight, we will hear 3 old business public hearing cases and 2 new business public hearing cases. Ms. Murray, can you please introduce the old business hearing cases number BZA-11-21-00536, 537, and 538?
Alrighty. Case BZA 11-21-00536, -00537 and -00538. I will be presenting these together, but as a reminder, you have to vote on them separately. The applicant and the property owner is Cesar Villegas property location for the first is 7638 East Oak Ridge Circle. The next 7635 East Oak Ridge Circle and 7646 Selma Street, all located in the north area. They are located in the low-density residential zoning district, and the request is for the placement of a manufactured housing unit in the low-density residential R4 zoning district. The bottom is the zoning requirement. Here are some of those pages from our ordinance. This is the zoning map, which shows the 3 subject properties and the current zoning. It also shows 3 properties which are located in the city of North Charleston. Here is the zoning map showing the 300-foot radius that we used when doing the mobile home application. Here's an aerial view for BZA 11-21-00536 and a zoomed out aerial. Here is an aerial for 00537 and a zoomed out aerial. And here is 00538 and a zoomed out aerial. And this shows the zoning sign that was placed and the subject property for 00536. Here are some of the surrounding properties and East Oak Ridge Circle. Here's the zoning sign for 00537, along with some photos of the subject property, the surrounding properties, and East Oak Ridge Circle again. And this is the zoning sign for 00538, the subject property, and some of the surrounding properties. And this is Selma Street. Here are a few photos provided by the applicant showing some of the other mobile homes in the neighborhood. So staff analyzed the properties within the 300-foot radius of them on October 6, 2021. Of the 45 parcels that are located in the radius, 34 of them have existing residences, 24 being single-family residences, 10 of them being multifamily homes, and 0 of the homes in the radius were manufactured homes. 2 of the properties are located in the city of North Charleston, and those were zoned general business. Staff found that 00536, 00537, and 00538 met criteria 1. It may meet criteria 1, excuse me, and it meets criteria 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny case BZA 11-21-00536, 00537, and 00538 if you choose to approve, we recommend one condition being that the manufactured home shall comply with section 6.4.24.b of Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. Here's the site plan for 00536. Here's the site plan for 00537 and the site plan for 00538. This is the plat, and I want to point out a few things. So the starred properties that you see on the plat are the applicant's, the properties that the applicant is requesting to place the mobile homes on. On the other side of the plat, you'll notice 3 blue dots. Those 3 blue dots are the other mobile homes that are located in the community, which were outside of the 300-foot radius. Okay. Any questions of staff?
Mr. Marchant?
Ms. Murray, I think your last slide answered my question that I had, but it does beg the question of, do any of these meet criteria 1 if they're truly outside of the 300-foot radius and less than 25% of those houses are not, are not manufactured homes? I guess I'm just struggling with the first criteria and whether it complies.
Yes, sir. One thing that I did want to point out, and I didn't put it on this map, but the 10 multifamily homes, which are like duplexes, most of those are located in that back area of East Oak Ridge and Selma Street. So it does show some diversity in the housing types.
Ms. Murray, as our prior conversation, just to clarify, I've got this right, if there's 0 existing mobile homes up to 25% mobile homes, it requires BZA approval. If there are more than 25% mobile homes, then y'all can handle that as an administrative decision?
Yes, sir, 25 and more. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any other questions for staff?
So my question is, what percentage is it right now of manufactured homes?
In the radius, 0.
So it's 0 right now. Okay. How about outside of that radius?
There were the 3 mobile homes. I can't tell you the percentage because I don't know it.
Okay. Thank you. Now, how far away are those 3 mobile homes from where the one is now? Do you know?
It's a pretty long street, honestly. I don't know.
Just from my review, could you kind of repeat what they're trying to do exactly?
So on the 3 starred parcels, they want to place mobile homes. And because there were none, we weren't able to get the 25%, so they have to apply for the special exception.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, with that, will the applicant in this case please come forward? If you would, kindly state your name and your address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Cesar Villegas, and I'm the owner of the 3 properties that we're looking and discussing.
Okay, Mr. Villegas, will you please tell this board why we should grant your application?
Well, at the beginning, I saw mobile homes at the street, so I thought it was something that I can just move on and move some of the. I own some mobile homes that are not located on my own property. I'm basically paying for rent for where they're sitting, and I was trying to move them out of there. And since I got those lots, I was trying to move them over there. Right now, it's just depending on what you guys decided for me to do. I'm okay with any decision. Eventually, I was reading some of the comments that the neighbors sent to the. I got some emails, I guess, from people living near there. If there is not allowed for mobile homes, then I would go for something else that maybe building a single family, or maybe a multi-family if it's allowed.
Anything else you'd like to add while you have your time?
Well, just what I'm trying to do with mobile homes, I'm doing a brick scoring around the bottom like the other ones, and the distance. One of the questions was how far is the distance from where I'm gonna be sitting mine. It's the street is at the beginning of the street. There's 2 of them, and at the end of the street is 1 more. So they are not too far from each other. But if it's gonna affect the community because I'm bringing more mobile homes, then I understand that.
Okay.
It will
right.
just.
Well, if you'll
one thing
wait just a minute, do any of the board members have a question for Mr. Villegas? Mr. Williams, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So can you give us a better idea about where this neighborhood is located on Dorchester Road?
No, it's off of Ashby Phosphate.
Phosphate?
Across, I don't know their area that well, but is if getting off from I-26 on Ashby Phosphate, there's 3 gas stations, and if you're driving through Ashby Phosphate, take a right, it's about I don't know, maybe 400 feet from Ashby Phosphate.
Are you trying to put new mobile homes on there or used ones or what?
They are fairly new. It's in good conditions, and if you move them, that I will be upgrading siding and roofing and exterior. Pretty much, I will be renovating
And then you stated that you're currently renting somebody else's property, but you want to put it on your own, right?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I own the mobile homes, but where they sitting, I don't own the land. I'm renting.
Any other board members have a question for Mr. Villegas? If not, I'll ask one more, Mr. Villegas. And I think I picked up on this when you were describing like the setup of these mobile homes. You've stated that they're mostly fairly new.
Yes.
And you're going to do brick skirting underneath them?
That's right.
And will you add on, I guess, wooden decks or attachments for the go in and out of it? Okay.
Yes, I will be doing one deck on each. I haven't planning to do what type of a deck I will be doing. More likely it's gonna be wood or composite.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have. And anybody else got anything else? All right, Mr. Vegas, if you'll have a seat, and you'll get a chance to come up and when other folks have spoken to respond to anything they might say. So just stand by. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to this application? All right. Not having anyone else to testify, this case is now closed to the public, and I would ask the board for a motion on this case.
Motion to approve the case.
All right, Mr. Williams, if you'll state your motion, sir.
Motion to approve this case, BZA case,
This will be for the first case.
First case.
00536.
00536. I believe that it meets all of the criteria. Criteria 1 is consistent with the recommendations contained in the Charleston County Comprehensive Plan and the character of underlying zoning district as indicated in the zoning district description. I believe it meets that criteria, seeing as that there are other mobile homes in that vicinity, maybe not next door to it, but down the street. I believe it meets criteria number 2 is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community. These are homes as well. He's building a deck. He's building some walls on the side. So I believe it meets that criteria as well. I believe it meets criteria 3. Adequate provisions made for such items as setbacks, buffering to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influences of the proposed use, such as noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, traffic congestion, and similar factors. I believe it meets that as well. I believe it meets criteria 4, where applicable will be developed in a way that will preserve and incorporate any important natural features. Doesn't look like there's going to be anything torn down or any kind of natural features torn off by the sounds of it. I believe it meets criteria 5, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, or site plan review requirements of this ordinance. Manufactured home, as mentioned by the staff, shall be skirted as described in section 6424B of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. I believe it meets criteria 6, regular traffic and pedestrian movement on adjacent roads shall not be hindered or endangered. You'll have a driveway just like all the other dwelling locations nearby. So I believe it meets that criteria as well. The only other thing I would add is the manufactured home shall comply with section 6424B of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, as recommended by staff. That's my motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Do we have a second? Mr. Woodle. Okay. Discussion. Seeing there's no discussion, we have a motion properly made by Mr. Williams, properly seconded by Mr. Woodle. At this time, I will call for a vote. All those that are in favor of this application, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is unanimous. All right. Now we're going to move on to BZA case 11-21-00537. Do I have a motion from the board for that case?
I motion to approve that case based on the criteria mentioned a minute ago. Should we just go ahead and repeat that again?
Yeah, you have to go through it all again.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Based on the criteria mentioned a minute ago for this next mobile home, case BZA case 11-21-00537, I believe that it does meet criteria number 1 is consistent with recommendations contained in the Charleston County Comprehensive Plan and the character of underlying zoning district as indicated in the zoning district description. It does, it is in line with the comprehensive plan. I believe it meets criteria number 2, is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare of character of the immediate community. It's got doors and a porch, just like the other homes do. I believe it meets number 2. I believe it meets criteria 3, adequate provision is made for such items as setbacks, buffering to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, traffic congestion, and similar factors. I believe it meets that criteria. I believe it meets criteria number 4, where applicable, will be developed in a way that it will preserve and incorporate any important features, natural features. It's not tearing anything down that's not a natural feature in that area. I believe it meets criteria 5, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, or site plan review requirements of this ordinance. So I believe it meets criteria 5. I believe it meets criteria 6, vehicular traffic and pedestrian movement on adjacent roads shall not be hindered or endangered. From here, it's a regular home with a driveway, so I believe it meets that criteria. With the added recommendation by the staff, I would like to add that the manufactured home shall comply with section 6424B of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance.
Thank
my
you, Mr.
motion.
Williams. May we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Woodle, all right. We have a motion properly made by Mr. Williams and properly seconded by Mr. Woodle. Discussion. Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of Mr. Williams' motion granting this application, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. All right, moving on to the final of these 3 cases. Do I have a motion for BZA case BZA-11-21-21-0058?
538.
553, excuse me, thank you.
I motion to approve 00538, BZA case 11-21-00538. I move to approve this, this case based on the fact that I believe it meets criteria 1, is consistent with recommendations contained in the Charleston County Comprehensive Plan and the character of the underlying zoning district as indicated in the zoning district description. It meets that because it is a home surrounded by other homes and mobile homes are nearby there. I believe it meets criteria 2, is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community. I believe it meets that criteria in that it is, again, a home being built similar to the other homes. I believe it meets criteria 3, adequate provision is made for such items as setbacks, buffering to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, traffic congestion, and similar factors. I believe it meets that criteria 3. I do believe it meets criteria 4, where applicable, will be developed in a way that it will preserve and incorporate any important natural features. As we heard from the case, the gentleman, it will be a mobile home being put there that is not much out of the ordinary. I believe it meets criteria 5, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning, district standards, or site plan review requirements of this ordinance. And therefore, I believe it meets criteria 5. I believe it does meet criteria 6, vehicular traffic and pedestrian movement in adjacent roads shall not be hindered or endangered. I don't believe there's going to be additional traffic from this particular building being put there, this mobile home. And with the added recommendation by staff, I would like to add, the manufactured home shall comply with section 6424B of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Having a proper motion made by Mr. Williams, may I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woodle. All right, having a proper motion made by Mr. Williams and properly seconded by Mr. Woodle, any discussion? Having none, I will now call for a vote. All those in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand and signify saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous again, the motion carries. Mr. Villegas, congratulations on your application. All three were approved. A written final decision will be mailed to you by certified mail for this board's decision, and you are to contact staff for about your next steps in this matter. Congratulations, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for going over details on my properties, and thank you for the approval. Have a good day. Thank you,
Good night
sirs.
to you, sir. All right. Ms. Brooks, will you please present the next case?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Good evening. I've got to get through these slides first.
So everybody understands why we had to do that. It's because in case, somebody could appeal all three, but somebody may want to appeal just one or two. So that's why we have to do that, because everything's being recorded. And if it is appealed to circuit court, then we have a transcript made. So, thank you.
Okay. Now on to case BZA 1221000544. The applicant and property owner, Jason Fabrizio of Relina Homes LLC, is requesting a variance to encroach more than 25% of the protected area beneath the 35-inch DBH Grand Live Oak Tree for access to Landed Gentry Way off of River Road at 2836 Landed Gentry Way, TMS 34500000020 on Johns Island. The subject property and adjacent properties are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district. So I'll go through the zoning map here, and here's the copy of the ordinance section that's applicable. Aerial photograph of the property outlined in blue, and then some pictures from the site visit on January 13th. And here's the tree in question. And some pictures of River Road. Let's see. So the property is 3.67 acres in size. It's located along River Road, which is designated as a scenic highway or scenic road in the ordinance. The applicant property owner submitted an exempt subdivision plat for the proposed relocation of Landed Gentry Way across Lot B residual, as shown on the plan here, and the tree is highlighted here in green. The three residential lots currently use Landed Gentry Way, and the applicant's letter of intent states, quote, "We have development plans for approval for 7 homes on this 3.67 acre property," end quote. Future subdivision of this property may require additional improvements to Landed Gentry Way and the property based on the ordinance and other governing agency requirements. The proposed plat shows the relocation of the easement and updated apron from River Road. The proposed location has been constructed on site, but has not been permitted yet. So here's the existing plat. The approval criteria, so they may not meet criteria 1, 3, and 6, but they may meet the other criteria. And the Board of Zoning Appeals has the authority, or may approve with conditions, or deny this case based on the findings of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary. In the event you decide to approve the application, the board should consider these conditions recommended by staff. And number one is the applicant owner shall provide or shall contract a certified arborist to devise a treatment plan for the requested tree and other grand trees within 40 feet of the proposed landed gentry way. The plan shall be reviewed and approved by the planning director prior to implementation and shall be implemented prior to plat approval. And number two, if the requested tree dies within 3 years of the BZA approval, the applicant shall mitigate the DBH of the tree by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2 1/2 inches in caliper equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund as described in section 926 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations. Or C, a combination of both A and B. The allotted mitigation shall be in place prior to its removal. That would be, yeah, if it died. And number three, tree barricades shall be installed around all protected trees within 40 feet of disturbance prior to any future construction pursuant to section 924 of the Charleston County ZLDR. And four, provide documentation of coordination with SCDOT for the curb cut to serve the 10 potential lots. And five, any changes to the curb cut or ingress-egress easement right-of-way, currently known as landed gentry way, may require further approval from the BZA for protected tree encroachments and/or removal requests. And six, the portions of the relocated landed gentry way that are within 40 feet of grand trees shall be constructed using a pervious material. Does the board have any questions?
Does anyone on the board have a question for Ms. Brooks? Mr. Marshall?
Just a clarification, so the ingress pad has been poured already, right?
That's correct.
And so
yeah.
this is a forgiveness kind of situation we're in? Is that right?
A little bit.
Okay. And the DOT curb cuts, they are already installed or not yet?
So there was some existing pavement that created a curb cut originally. The additional pavement that's been added is a kind of a continuation of that. So I don't know, depending on what DOT requires as far as like site distance or width. I'm not sure what, or if they would require any further improvements to that. That would be something we'd have to figure out.
So the DOT curb cut was already in place?
Yes, there was like
Drawing
in the
suggests-
right of way, but
Yeah.
not that you can see
Not on, right, not
the
on the
picture
property.
here. There
Yeah.
has been some where the concrete and rock is. There has been some additional improvements to that. So that's kind of what prompted us to come back
Thank you.
here. Yeah.
Ms. Brooks, I guess I'll just follow up Mr. Marchant. I rode out to the site the day before I came here and took a look at it. And to answer your question, essentially it was probably a dirt driveway or an access off that road, and they repaved River Road. And when they did, they put basically an asphalt apron to the dirt. And the applicant or someone acting on his behalf poured a concrete driveway basically from that point. Ms. Brooks, I was going to ask you this question. So when I went there and looked today, it looked like the asphalt apron was sufficiently away from the root structure of the tree, and that the concrete portion done by the applicant was even further away from the tree. I guess, is it fair to say you're not overly concerned about the proximity of the impervious surface to the roots, but this is an issue of canopy encroachment, or are the roots in play?
Yeah, I mean, I would be somewhat concerned about the roots. Going where there was some access originally, there was probably some compaction already there. So that's why we've recommended for there to be a treatment plan from an arborist. They may need to go back and do some aeration or fertilization to help reinvigorate any damage that may have been done when the concrete was put in. So,
Well, I guess what I was going to bring up is it's like not to the applicant's responsibility, but it looks like, you know, the contractor for DOT already poured the apron right by the tree for an existing driveway. So that was not on him. But I guess is a remedy to remove the concrete and make it a pervious surface there beyond the apron? I mean, that's the tricky bit with this, is the apron is required by SCDOT to make ingress and egress off the highway.
sure. So I'm not necessarily talking about the asphalt apron.
Okay.
I'm talking about the new concrete.
Okay.
And not necessarily removing it, because that could be more damaging.
Sure.
But maybe as part of the arborist recommendations, whether there needs to be, we've had some arborists in the past, like they'll go and create like a radial holes in the pavement to provide some places for.
Are you satisfied that the conditions, should we approve this, are satisfactory to you, that the tree would be best served with those conditions? I mean, would they be adequate?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Yeah, and that's why we added some additional conditions. If it were to be required to make changes in the future for whatever reason, whether it's from the DOT or Public Works or whatever, the regulations may be in place at the time. If it's required for any changes additional to this, then they may need to come back to the board for further encroachment into this tree or other trees in the
Thank you.
property.
Does any other board members have any questions for Mr. Nelson?
Yes. Ms. Brooks, was there a gravel drive in place before the slab was poured, or was it just a dirt drive from the apron extending back into the property? Or do you know the answer to that question?
I can't say, I don't really know the answer to that because they never came in to get a permit to build the driveway.
Okay.
So that's why we're going back now and trying to retroactively get this in place moving forward.
Any other questions?
So I guess my question is,
Mr. Williams?
yeah, thank you. So paving a driveway, normally they're required to get a permit to pave a driveway, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, to construct, maybe not pave, but any construction that would include,
Beyond the dirt?
yeah.
Any construction beyond the dirt that was there?
Even dirt, like, yeah, any construction on the property would require permitting.
So I guess to piggyback on what he was saying over there, these conditions, would that kind of mitigate some of the situation that we have here? Would the
Right.
I guess unpermitted driveway?
Right.
Okay. Because it could cause further damage if they try to tear it down, I guess, right?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
And we did have a public comment that I think Jenny passed out for this, that goes with this case, so.
Are there any other questions of staff? Hearing none, is the applicant here for this case? Yes, sir. Would you please come forward, sir? Yes. If you'd please be so kind to state your name and your address, sir.
Yes, sir. Jason Fabrizio.
And if you'd please tell this board why we should grant your application.
Okay. 2414 Ion Avenue, Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. Basically, as my application said, this is something we've been working through with the planning department for quite a few years. And I think it was quite a few years before that. If there's a couple things that I'd like to hand out that I think might be useful, if that is
Ms.
okay.
Murray right there, she'll take them from you. Right. Okay.
Just one packet to everybody would be great. Thank you. And then also, well, that's good enough for now. Can I use that?
Yes, sir, you're welcome to. You can go ahead and proceed if you want to.
Okay.
Again, yes, sir.
Basically, what had passed out to you is, again, the improvements on it. Yes, it was an improvement because we built 3 homes in the back, and we wanted to make sure there were safe improvements on it. But as some of the photos are better than others, but as you're looking through the photos, these were taken off a Google map, historical, and starting from 2007 to 2012. And I know the first 2 are a little tough to see because they're darker. But as you look at 2013, it becomes much more evident and easy to see because a little brighter, better photo. And 2019 to 2021 was before it was. And you can see that that asphalt was considerable distance back. The concrete that was replaced was concrete. And basically the reason, again, it was replaced is because as construction started happening in that, as the truss trucks and lumber trucks and cement trucks and so forth went on that driveway and deeded road. That's one of my concerns with this whole application is that it's, in the staff's presentation, it says proposed. It is not a proposed road. It is a deeded, in everybody's records, everybody's there road. And that entrance and cut is a deeded, it's been in place for 20 odd years, maybe more. I'm not exactly sure. So once the construction truck started going on that, it started tearing that road up a little bit, the asphalt up a little bit for that driveway, and it had to be replaced because I didn't want somebody, it's a tougher intersection getting in and out of River Road, and I didn't want somebody's back wheels spinning because they hit the gas a little to make the turn, and something was to happen. So we did not make it any bigger. We did not make it any longer. We just simply took it out and replaced it with a solid surface so tires would not spin out when a car did. Again, I'm really, as my application states, really not sure why we're here asking for it because it is a deeded, it was already in place, it was simply just a replacement. We had permits before we bought the property, or as we had the property under contract in 2000, maybe 16, I believe. There was mobile homes on the property. So that road has been used for access to mobile homes. There was 911 addresses for that property. I mean, again, I'm really not sure why we're having to ask for a road. We called DOT under their request, and DOT's statement was, there's already a road there. It's already servicing the property. We're going through this process first to make sure, and the reason we're doing the BZA is there's been some minor subdivision changes made between a major and a minor subdivision in the county recently, and this has been in process, and so we're pushing it through to try to get the rest of the development done, and we're just here to satisfy check on a box. So again, not 100% sure why we're here asking for it, but if it could be granted, some of the concerns by staff that says we don't meet criteria number 1, I believe we do, because most properties don't have a deeded entrance and exit egress in place, road. We do. Number 3, it says that we may or may not meet that one, therefore you may not meet this requirement. We do believe we meet it because the road's been there and it's been actively used at certain parts over the last, 20, 50 years for residential use. So the tree is not, the additional, what we're doing isn't any different that's been in place for half that tree's life or a third of that tree's life already. We would also state that, I think there was one other one that was a concern for the BZA. Oh, under the conditional aspect, yeah, the condition aspect. You know, we're fine working with DOT, but they're not interested in, you know, they're like, it's already in place. I don't know what your approval is for. So we wouldn't ask that be another condition for this particular case. As far as the public comments were concerned, we're for the tree canopies also. You know, that property by zoning allows up to 20 homes on it. We're doing 10, we're doing larger lots, we're doing less impact with putting not sewer lines in, digging wells, trying to do a community that is saving the beauty of the trees. The same way River Road has a canopy, we're trying to do the canopy going into the community and impacting as few trees as possible. So, you know, in the connection from the public comment on the back road, I have another copy, if you like to see a little bit bigger copy, but if we were to connect on the back road in the back, we'd impact 3 trees literally going through the middle of them of 30-inch plus oak trees. So it's just not I realize it's there, it's an easement, it's in place currently as of today, but it's not really, I don't think that's what you guys would want, and that's what we don't want either. But it's in place. I mean, we could use it if we were forced to use it.
If you'll hold on right there, does anyone have a question for, go ahead, Mr. Marchant.
Thank you for your testimony. I've got a couple questions. I guess the deeded road, we've got 2 plats before us. One is from 2009, and the road essentially bisects the property, and then the newer survey is from 2021, where the road kind of does a serpentine maneuver through the property. So I guess just point of clarification, or maybe even law, the deeded road originally has now been modified,
Well,
but
road's
the
still
ingress
there. Yes,
egress
sir.
is the same.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess that's one just kind of point. The other is, I do have a question about that connection to Myrtle Beach Road, and I agree with you. I think it impacts many other trees if you were to connect into that on the backside of the property.
Yes, sir.
But what does the termination of that road look like if you don't connect into Myrtle Beach? Do you have a cul-de-sac? How does that work? Because it's not clearly identified on this, and I just wonder, are we going to be talking again about how we turn cars around and get people back out?
Well, it's the same as it's always been, to be quite honest. So there's never been a full access going back through. So again, I know you guys are looking, I don't think you have tablet size. But here's the recorded plat, if you'd like a copy that I highlighted, that shows the trees on it currently.
Yeah, it's overlaid. You can see it on the,
see it,
yeah,
okay.
I can see it.
So, the road that we're proposing will go in when we do the additional subdivision after we get through this aspect of the application process. We'll have a turnaround in the back. And we have it, you know, we've sold 2 of those houses and we're selling the other one. We've put it on surveys, we've recorded everything as potential easements, areas that are available. We've gone through wetlands delineation, we've paid wetlands credits, we've done extra buffering at the first 75 feet on the other side of the property. I mean, we're not trying to pass any fast ones here, but we're also have been hitting some serious obstruction issues.
Well,
in the
and
process.
that sort of leads to my next question, because we've seen a lot here on this board where a developer comes in and says, I'm only going to do this, I'm never coming back. And I wish I had $1 for every time we've heard that, because
Well, I'm not saying that.
I know, but hold on. So you've got a road now that's designed to go through the property in this serpentine way that encroaches on more live oaks later on, which are going to require variance. And so I know that's not part of this case today, but I'm sort of getting to the point of, is this the first of many that we're going to have looking at how to mitigate or demolish or give variance to tree encroachment? Because right after we enter the property, we got a 32-inch live oak that the road is encroaching more than 25% on. And then as we turn south, we've got a 32-inch live oak that the road encroaches more than 25% on. And the 24-inch oak is maybe 25% or less. It's hard to tell. So anyway, we're starting with perhaps giving you a variance on a tree. We may have additional challenges later on, and I just want to make sure that we start right and don't end wrong,
I understand.
because that's going to mess up your plats and it's going to mess up your houses.
And again, if
and maybe just shifting the road north 80 feet helps
Well,
you.
and that's
you know.
what we've tried to
So-
do, and that's why we were really steadfast on leaving the entrance where it is and not impacting the current platted road in any of those areas. It hasn't been touched. So the areas where the road is either currently approved at or where it's been really relocated to we haven't impacted any of the trees, any additional trees. In the areas where it's kind of close, the road is a gravel road also. It's not a paved road. And again, because we wanted to have a pervious area on it. It's not a high impact road, as I said before. And if it ends up where after we get through this process and we can hopefully proceed to the next process where we're going for the actual subdivision of the lots, if it's, I'm not so sure in the beginning there's probably going to be a lot that can be made because it'll impact too many of the live oak trees, which is fine. If it ends up having an impact and we have more buffer zone off of River Road or community area in the front on one of the 1/2 to 3/4 acre lots, that's fine. But again, I can't tell you that we're not going to be back. Because I can't get over this hump to find out what the next questions are by staff.
Well, sometimes, just from experience, it's worth designing the whole thing first and coming once.
Well,
Just
we
from
bought it this
experience.
way. So
Understand.
Unfortunately, this was already pre-done. And when I say, I've been in business here in Charleston for 20 years. We've built a lot of homes. We built a lot of affordable homes in different areas. And this has been the most difficult. And we've developed a lot of neighborhoods. I mean, I've developed quite a few homes in the Tri-County area. And this by far has been more difficult than anything I've ever done. And it's stemming from this this staff thinks it's proposed. Everybody else, including 911 and everybody else, thinks it's already there. So, I mean, I got to get past this hump to get to the other. And I agree with you. When we normally go into it, the process is a one-term process. We're not going in piecemealing lots a few at a time. But after 5 or 6 years of waiting on this, and paying interest to banks and paying taxes to the county and paying insurance to make sure nobody broke their leg on it, we had to build some of the homes and get through it.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank
No
you very
more
much.
questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brooks, I'm coming right back to you, but
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to, I'm following along the lines of Mr. Marchant because he raises excellent points here. I know we're here for the one oak tree, but I noticed in the photograph, the gravel driveway runs right beside another grand tree. Is there any reason we didn't address both of those trees in tonight's hearing, since those are clearly being impacted at the same time?
Right. We did go out and visit the site, and when looking at the construction that had already taken place, we didn't feel like it was necessary to bring those trees in at this time. But since this is on a scenic road, we thought it would be prudent to, especially with the construction near the tree at the entrance, to put in some safeguards moving forward for the additional.
Well, I guess what I'm getting
Conditions
at
for the
is, and this is
protected
following
tree.
right along Mr. Marchant, here's the thing. We get on the property with the first tree.
Right.
And now, I mean, a road's actively being used that's encroaching on other trees, and they're equally encroached.
So the other thing is moving forward from here, when the subdivision plat is submitted for the lots, it is possible that you may see another application on this because the construction plans for the road haven't been
Well,
for those lots. Because now a major subdivision is 4 lots or greater, and a right-of-way is required to be 50 feet and not 20 feet, and it has to be built to a certain standard. So now we're getting into something else that we can't predict right now because we don't have that application in front of us. So we just have to go by what.
here's
we
my hardest
have,
question.
yeah.
How did we get here? How was this property ever being allowed to be subdivided as it is now with no access that went to it that didn't encroach upon trees to begin with? How did that ever get through the reviews of the plats? Because that tree survey has to be done. And so right now, even if we give him the one tree, what he's drawn in here, I guess this is what I'm getting at. Criteria 3, I'm sorry, hang on. Criteria 3 is the one that's going to be a tricky thing from here on out. Because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of property. The inability to subdivide property is not an unreasonable restriction. If you can only get one house on it, that's what you get. And I know it sounds crazy, but under what we have to follow by the letter of the law, that's what we've got here. And we'd have to explain why that's not the case.
Okay.
And so this is not but it's a fact. And so if you've got access to a piece of property, once you've got the access at that point and you got room to put a house up there in the front part, you're done. I mean, essentially, you're not going to meet criteria 3. And when you come back, it's still going to be right there. And you may not be able to subdivide the rest of this property is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not saying that, and you may be able to draw the road in such a fashion and
part of it is, and I'll
reimagine.
answer your question why we can't, why we did this way.
Sure.
Because this is in the staff notes that this project is currently grandfathered in. We're currently in process under the old notes. This has been going on for numerous years. In the staff notes, this is the tree that they addressed when we showed that second proposal to them. These are the only trees they mentioned as an issue on the written comments back and forth.
But you hear my predicament.
I do. No.
So the problem is we grant you this one tree. Now you can't claim you don't have access anymore because you do. And you can get a 40 by 40 house up there in the front of that property. But the navigation of that road to the rear of the property and the access of these 3 lots, it almost becomes like a master and equity hot mess now because you got private property owners back here that bought these houses in good faith that need access to them. Mm-hmm. And that may wind up in the masters and equity court. It may not, I don't know. I kind of see 2 roads for this thing, and I'm not sure how this all works out. I mean, I can see the justification of this one tree, but
it's 2 trees to be quite honest. It should be the 2 trees in front because they're almost equally distanced
I went and
away
looked
from
at
each
it today,
other.
and I do realize that there's really not a lot of ways you could have run that road to River Road without encroaching on a tree. I mean, they're all equally spaced. I know one might not be a grand tree towards Maybank, but yeah, I see the predicament. I mean, the road's probably in its best place regardless because it's straight across from the Kerr family's place, so the
power
driveways
lines
meet.
have, at some point in time, taken out some of the trees, I'm sure.
And obviously the apron went in, so SCDOT allowed that. I mean, their contractor put the apron. It's been there for a long time. I remember when River Road got repaved. I don't know. I guess that's my question for later for discussion. But all right. Anybody else have any other questions?
I do have a question. So my question is, could you have gotten permitted for what you were trying to, for paving that part? What you're supposed to get permitted?
We were just replacing something that was already damaged on our property. So we typically, when we build a house and we take out a driveway and we put in a new driveway, that does not require another permit to put in a new driveway. So, and that's the confusion on this issue is, is this an access driveway? Is this, or is it a platted road? So
Because the staff was saying that you would have had to get permitted to add that cement. Is that true?
I don't believe so.
It's not truthful about the fact that you'd have to get permitted?
Again, I'm not saying they're untruthful. I'm saying that I'm not sure of that.
Can we refer to the lawyer?
Yeah, I don't take his comments as he's saying they're untruthful. What he's saying is it existed, he did not create anything new.
Okay.
And all he did was improve what already existed.
So my question is, to add that cement, would he have had to get permitted to add that cement to that spot?
Well, my interpretation of what he's saying is DOT says no, the county says yes.
Okay.
And that's why the only reason why he's before us.
Okay.
Is the county is saying yes.
I guess I'm speaking from the county's perspective.
And you have to decide as a board.
Okay. What does the law say about from the county's side?
Well, that's why we're here, to get this cleared up with the construction under the tree.
Maybe this question will help. This is a platted road right here, right now today, correct?
Yes, sir.
As drawn on the latest plat, correct?
As drawn on the one recorded in 2010.
That one is a straight road. That's not this road.
Correct.
So this road doesn't matter.
What?
That's the ticket. I mean, that's not what's been platted. So now I'm on the wrong map, wrong plat. So let me go back to the other one, because that's the one that matters, because it is platted. And so if I would take the position that there were grand trees next to the road that was already platted, you'd have a lot of room to get help from this board, because it's an existing platting road that the county approved. Fair enough? What you're wanting to do is not going to be allowed by the county when you take it in there because of all the encroachment of all the trees.
Well, we don't believe that it's encroaching that many trees. We think we can work around a bunch
Well,
of
can I
trees.
ask this question? If this is the plat, I mean, I'm looking at your surveyor's trees drawn in here, and I mean, with just common sense, I can see at least one, probably two trees. I'm sorry, three trees. 1, 2, 3, coming right on in after even if we gave you the first tree, there's 3 more after it. They look like they substantially are.
First tree in the front, and I'm not trying to be
But the next
argumentative with you,
3
the first
trees
tree in
in
the front
line.
is already part of the current right of way.
Right, but the next 3 trees after that, according to your proposed platted road.
Again, yes.
So I'm saying it's not going to work for you because you're not unreasonably restricted access to this property. You've already got a platted road that works for you. You're trying to redesign it. I understand, to get more lots, but you don't have that right. We don't have the authority to give it to you because you're not being unreasonably restricted. That's what I'm getting into. We can deal with this one tree tonight. That's what's on the table. But after that, I wouldn't walk away from here overly confident that you're going to come back and get it to go through this board. I'm just saying it as not a warning, but just something to pay very close attention to. All right, and that's all I got to say. All right.
I appreciate the advice.
If he is approved, it's not approving this plat.
Correct. No, we're going to make a quick note. If the board tonight approves your request for the one tree, I would ask whichever board member does it that we reference the plat with the original present platted road, not the proposed plat. That we should reference that in our.
And we didn't submit the proposed plat as part of this.
No,
presentation.
I'm just saying this is a clarification
I
so
understand,
that
but
there's
I'm
no
just telling you,
misunderstanding of what
we
we're
didn't
going by.
submit
Okay.
it as part of that. We were again trying to get through this process
Yes, sir.
so that we could go to the next process and work on the other aspects of it, whether it works or not according to the rules.
Well, I have no idea how this is going to go tonight, but I just want to make those points. Any questions for the applicant by any other board members? Hearing none. All right, if you'll just sit down for a second, and we're going to ask if there's anybody.
Fine.
Yes, right there's fine. Okay. Anybody? With that, are there anyone here tonight that would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone would like to speak in favor? All right, there's no one. Anyone like to speak in opposition of this application here tonight? Okay. Well, since no one spoke for or against it, if you'd like to say anything more, you do have a right to speak a second time, but if you're good, we're good. Okay, all right. Yes, sir. All right. All right, with that, this case is closed to the public. I I would ask if anyone on the board would like to make a motion in this case.
You want to have some discussion first?
Well,
Do we have to have a motion in a second before we discuss? Okay, it may affect the motion, but okay.
Does anyone care to make a motion in favor or in opposition of this application? Mr. Nelson.
All right, in the case of BZA 12-21-00544, I'm going to make a motion that we approve this request. I actually find that it does meet the 7 criteria. One, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Now, base that upon the fact that the entrance was already there and did require some improvements in order to access the property, and some work that was going on in the back, recognizing there may be work down the line. Criteria 2, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Again, there already being essentially an apron there that the DOT installed, it is a logical place for road access back to the property. Condition 3, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. It is necessary, in my opinion, to maintain roadways and maintain drives back to pieces of property, and I can understand the need in this case to have a concrete slab installed at this particular location. Criteria 4, the authorization of this variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by granting of this variance. I believe the applicant actually made a very good point here in that installing this slab actually makes the River Road a little more accessible, a little safer to access River Road from this particular location. I know that turning on the River Road can be difficult at times when there are a lot of other trees and canopies in the way, and having the ability to see and accelerate rapidly to get into traffic is actually important. Criteria 5, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, to extend physically a nonconforming use of land, or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. The fact that property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted may not be considered grounds for a variance. Again, we're not changing anything the way the property is used at this time. Criterion 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. This is one of those more difficult ones to overcome because the slab has already been installed, and that was done by the applicant. However, again, as pointed out earlier, the road and the cut was already located at this particular spot, and so there was a need, and I could see the need being there to improve that access in order to get back to this particular piece of property. And criterion 7, granting of this variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. In making this motion, I will agree and add the 6 special conditions as recommended by staff. 1, the applicant/property owner shall contract a certified arborist to devise a treatment plan for the requested tree and other grand trees within 40 feet of the proposed landed gentryway. The plan shall be reviewed and approved by the planning director prior to implementation and shall be implemented prior to plat approval. 2, if the requested tree dies within 3 years of BZA approval, the applicant shall mitigate the DBH of the tree by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval, indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2 1/2 inches in caliper, equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund, as described in Section 9.2.6 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations, or C, a combination of both A and B. The allotted mitigation shall be in place prior to its removal. 3, tree barricades shall be installed around all protected trees within 40 feet of disturbance prior to any future construction pursuant to Section 9.2.4 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations. 4, provide documentation of coordination with the South Carolina Department of Transportation for the curb cut to serve the 10 potential lots. 5, any changes to the curb cut or egress easement right-of-way currently known as landed gentry way may require further approval from the BZA for protected tree encroachments and/or removal request. And 6, the portions of the relocated landed gentry way that are within 40 feet of grand trees shall be constructed using pervious materials. That is my motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Nelson, would you be willing to add a caveat to your motion that your motion would be based in part upon the revised and recorded plat dated October 12, 2009?
Yes, we can add that to the motion.
Thank you. I'll second. All right, with a motion properly made and properly seconded, any discussion?
Which plot are you referring to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
This is a proposed. This is a proposal. Go ahead, Mr. Marchant. I'm sorry, apologies.
Mr. Nelson, that was an excellent motion, and I agree with you. I guess the only reason I thought it'd be worth discussing this as a board is we will see this again. And I just wonder about the application process and understanding the big picture and not just the first stroke of the pen and how we feel about that as a board in general. I think this tree's gonna be fine. I think it will live to see many, 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 many years. I'm not worried about the tree. I think I'm just worried more about process and how we see that as a board. So I just want to go on record saying that because we'll see this gentleman again. And my guess is between the utilities and the 4 other trees, it'll be an interesting development process.
And I would agree with you on that, but there's a lot of information that we don't have about the remainder of the project.
Right.
In fact, the applicant mentioned a wetland delineation, and as a wetland guy, I've done a lot of those in my life. And I know about obtaining Corps of Engineer permits and the routes that you have to take in order to get around and through and over wetlands. And without having any of that information, we really can't base anything else on the future of this project.
Agreed.
And I agree with you. I think in a perfect world, this would come as a complete project with all those issues addressed in one filing, but that's not what we have tonight. And I think we've certainly given proper notice to this applicant. We certainly can't bind any future BZA or predict what they may or may not do, but certainly we understand the criteria, and I think he's going to have a tremendous hurdle to overcome should he, I guess, try to pursue the proposed plat he's submitted. But that said, any further discussion?
I guess my only discussion point is the criteria number 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions, and that the applicant did pave that part of the property and didn't get a permit for it. So that would be the applicant's own actions.
I would respond to that by saying that clearly all the way back to 2009, that road existed, and clearly when they repaved River Road, they repaved and installed that apron, and I don't think either of those are his doing, and he didn't cause that to be done. The additional paving is almost kind of secondary, if it were, because the asphalt apron was already there. He just extended it, but if it's a platted road, and it appears to be such, according to that 2009 plat, it's a road. So with that being said, I hear you.
Could he have put more of the asphalt on there, or applied to get more asphalt on there?
Well, that's kind of, it doesn't matter. They're still both impervious, and I think that's the issue of the impervious surface. But literally, when I was speaking to Ms. Brooks, a lot of the major encroachment was the apron itself. He just extended it further back. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous.
I said no.
Oh, sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry. All right, all those in opposition?
Aye.
Okay, sorry. So we had 6 ayes and 1 no. Mr. Williams saying no. All right. Well, we can talk in just a minute. I'm getting ready. Okay, one second. All right, so, Mr. Fabrizio, your application has been approved. You will receive the final decision in 10 days via certified mail. And at this point, you are encouraged to reach out to county staff as to what the next steps in this process are. And congratulations.
The only thing I have questions, I think the recorded deed or recorded plat is January 29, 2010. That's what I was trying to.
I'm so, well, let me look at it. Well, the one I was, yeah, the one I was referring to, sorry, it might be additional one. This was what was in our notes, so, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I guess I should, all right, well, can we go back and amend the record?
Yes, so it's
Okay, sorry.
January
Okay,
29th,
no, I see
29th,
this.
2010.
Yes. So, let the record reflect that the plat referred to as having been recorded on January the 29th, 2010.
Yes, sir.
Having been, I guess, prepared and revised on the date, the October 12th date was a revision date of the plat prior to recording. So let the reflect the fact that this approval is referencing the recorded plat dated January 29th, 2010. Thank you for that, clearing that up. Sorry about
And
that.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I
Nope, that was a
looking for it.
valid interruption.
Thanks for your
All right,
help.
thank you. All right. Well, staff, Mr. Downing, will you call the next case, sir?
All right, since this is the last case, I'm going to read really slow because I know we all love being here. The applicant and property owner, Mr. Justin Mysock, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density residential zoning district R4 at 192 Wapu Road, TMS number 350150010. In the St. Andrews area of Charleston County. The subject property and the properties to the east and west are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district. The properties to the north and south are undevelopable marsh within the city of Charleston's jurisdiction. The property contains a 1,545 square foot single-family residence that was constructed in 1968 per Charleston County records. That is the ordinance in dealing with short-term rental. The definition of short-term rental tenant. That is the subject property. Again, the properties to the north and south are located within the city of Charleston's jurisdiction, and both of those are undevelopable marsh. That is an aerial view of the subject property and a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. A picture of the sign. That is the subject property. The structure. That is the proposed parking. There is a looped driveway. So that is the driveway to the right and the left, on the right and left-hand sides. Those are the surrounding properties. The properties to the immediate east and west, those are both of those properties. Staff did conduct a site visit on the 19th of January. And that is a picture of Wapu Drive. So the Board of Zoning Appeals, well, we do believe, staff does believe that all three of the criteria for short-term rental, for the extended home rental has been met for the special exception. The Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 1221-00545, special exception to request the established a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density residential R4 zoning district at 192 Wapu Drive, TMS number 35015000010 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County based on the BZA's fact finding, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board does decide to approve the application, staff does have 4 recommendations to attach with this application. Prior to the zoning permit's approval, that the applicant shall complete the short-term rental limited site plan review process. You shall comply with all of Article 6.8. The property owner shall not use the property for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and that the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. That is the picture of the site plan, and it shows the proposed parking. Again, that's the loop driveway. The plat. Any questions to staff?
Any questions for staff?
Oh, and before I entertain questions, we did receive 2 letters in opposition.
Any questions for staff? All right, hearing no questions, is the applicant present? Would you please come forward, sir? If you'd be so kind to state your name and address, please.
My name is Justin Mysock, and I live at 192 Wapoo Road.
Good evening, Mr. Mysock. Would you please tell this board why we should grant your application?
Thank you for volunteering. 7 years ago, I got divorced and had to move out of Old Village, Mount Pleasant, where we had an amazing house, everything like that. But I wanted my children to have the same massive yard, water access, and all of that. So 7 years ago, I bought this house. It wasn't habitable. The floors had fallen through. There were termites. I spent 16 months and just under $100,000 renovating this. And it's amazing. I've lived there. My immediate next door neighbor just kind of sold their house. It fell through at the end, but they sold it for $1.2 million. And I bought mine for $180,000, $185,000. And so I love the area. A little bit more than, I guess, 3 years ago, I started doing Airbnb. I went through the process. I got permitted, everything like that. And Airbnb is great for me because I get my children every other weekend, and then for 4 weeks, not consecutive weeks, but I get them for 4 weeks during the summer. And when I have my children, I don't do Airbnb. So every other weekend, I focus solely on my children, and this, when I don't have them, I'm living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house by myself, with my dog, and it's too big for what I need. I have a smart house. I have cameras in the living room, so interior, exterior, I can see what's going on. It's recorded. So I'm very secure. I've been doing Airbnb for more than 2 years. 189 different guests have stayed with me and left me reviews. I have a perfect 5-star review over the last 100 guests. And this is something I'm good at. I'm very personable. I can talk with anybody, give them recommendations on where to go to get dinner, what to do, what to see, how to do it, how to avoid traffic and this and that. So what I'm applying for is just to be able to do it more than 72 days. Every other weekend, I still will not do it. And then during the summer, those 4 one-week periods, again, I have no intention of ever doing Airbnb when I've got my boys there. That way, they feel like it's their house. They don't ever have to share it with anybody. And Airbnb allows me to pay the child support for them, and do it pretty successfully. So I do live at the house. I'm in the very front bedroom. Has its own bedroom and bathroom, so I see people coming in and going out. Again, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you'll wait 1 second, does anyone from the board have a question for Mr. Mysock?
I guess a quick question. If I may.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams. go
I might
ahead.
have missed it, but how long have you said you lived there at that house?
Well, I bought it 7 years ago. It took me 16 months of nights and weekends to renovate it to where it was habitable again. So, but
That's
yeah,
your main home right now?
it's my only home right now.
Okay. Thank you. That's my only question.
Anyone else? I'll have a quick one. Mr. Mysock, so I guess this is, how many years have you been operating on your existing short-term rental authorization?
2 licensed years, and
Okay.
then the third year, or I think I did it for a couple of months.
Sure.
Before they required the business
Understood.
license.
So, okay, and in those 2 years, have you had any complaints that you've received from your neighbors?
Zero.
Loud noise, too many cars, anything like that?
No, sir.
And if I understand staff, are the lots next to you undevelopable? Did I hear that, or what? Sorry.
The front yard
Yes,
looks
sir.
out onto the Stono River.
Yes, sir.
And then the backyard is Sandy Creek, the salt marsh.
Okay, so I got you. Behind you and in front of you. Okay, that's what I was
The
trying to
house
understand.
immediately to, if you're looking at my house from the road,
Yes, sir.
immediately to the left has a fenced-in backyard, and that house is probably 25 feet away from my house. So so that's close. The house on the opposite sides are
And I guess the last thing I'll follow up with you is you are owner occupying this residence. So you'll be living there on the property when you have guests,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay, all right. I don't have anything else for you. Anybody else on the board have any questions? All right, sir, if you'll sit down for 1 second.
Thank you.
You'll get a chance to come back in a few minutes. Is there anyone here tonight to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in favor? Okay. Is there anyone here tonight to speak in opposition of this application? All right, sir in front, if you'll please come forward. If you'll please state your name and address, sir.
Frank Jones. I live at 184 Walpoo Road.
Okay, Mr. Jones, will you please go ahead and tell us what's your opposition?
I have some paperwork to give the board, but I'll
Okay, if you'll hand it to Ms. Murray right there, she'll take it.
have a petition against the zoning application.
Okay,
It was copied from Greenville County and modified to Charleston County.
sure, okay.
Then I have a rebuttal handwritten to some of the application.
That's fine, you can hand that to Ms. Murray as well, unless you need it to read to us. Okay. All right, sir, all right.
So-
Chris, go ahead.
Mr. Justin's been an excellent stewardship of the property. Been a good neighbor, and our issue's not so much with him. But the 12 signatures I've gathered, plus the others, they are more, have more of an issue with the way Charleston County has wrote this.
Okay,
And the biggest issue is the fact that under extended home rental, the owner does not have to occupy it. To everybody there, and this is in a very old neighborhood, it's been there, people, I myself been there 68 years, my neighbor's been there 69 years, and this exceeds our our lifetime because it's a generational neighborhood where it was handed down by our property. But we have to deal with what Charleston County has written. I had a judge tell me famously, if it don't say it, it ain't so. And the fact is, your extended home rental states that the owner does not have to be there. Now, Mr. Justin says he will be there, and maybe he will, and he probably will. But we have to look at how the extended home rental is written. If it didn't say that, probably have very little opposition.
okay,
But the fact is, without him being there, we have no way of knowing if the people's coming there are supposed to be there or not coming there. Everybody else in the neighborhood knows everybody else. So we have security issues. We're concerned that it's a 3-bedroom house. If he's not there, you got much more room to rent out. The rental parties become bigger. And again, I'm not saying he would do that, but we have to deal with how it's written, and it gives him permission to do that. Okay. The other thing I want to bring up, and that's the heartburn everybody has. The other thing I want to bring up is in 1999, Charleston County enacted a land development ordinance, and it passed, and it was part of the waterfront development. I'm pulling back from memory now. And when Charleston County enacted this zoning requirement, and I actually had one of the zoning committees sit down and tell me this, go through with this with me 3 years ago. All these lots became non-compliant because Charleston County in this ordinance said that any land, and I'm trying to recite from memory the best I can. I'm sorry if I get some of the items wrong. Charleston County said that any land that touches a critical line has to be 90 feet wide. Every one of these lots are only 80 feet wide. Okay. So, which brings me to section 10, 2.3 of Charleston County's ordinance, which is non-conforming uses. And it says here, and I'm going to pick up in the middle, it says, because I only got 2 minutes, it says, in acting upon, and this is the board, in acting upon such request, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not be guided by the special exemption approval criteria of this ordinance, but rather shall approve the change of use only upon a finding that the new use will be less detrimental to the adjacent property. And I'll be happy to give you all that.
You can have Ms. Murray right there if you.
The section he's citing is for non-conforming use, and it's not a non-conforming use, it's a non-conforming lot, which is also in chapter 10.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's totally different.
Does anyone have any?
That doesn't
questions?
apply.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Jones? Mr. Marchant?
Just confirm that last comment was irrelevant, correct? The last issue.
Right.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your comments. I think one of the things we do as a board is we want to take the testimony from all parties and put some faith in that, and also put faith in the ordinance that we are judging against. And I think one of the nice things about short-term and long-term rentals is that every year the applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, has to reapply. And in doing so, if they're acting in good order with the ordinance and also with the law, that application process goes smoothly. And if they're not, then it does not go smoothly. And I'd like, as a member of this board, and I think you as a member of the community and your neighbors, put some faith in that, because if he doesn't do as he says, then he'll be revoked of his privilege to do that. And so I guess my question for you would be, as a neighbor and someone who sounds like you appreciate your neighbor because he's been a good neighbor, based on previous activity and record, do you, not the folks that signed the oh shoot, what do we call these things? Petition. Thank you, petition. It's late. It's been a long day. How do you feel about that personally? Do you have faith in your neighbor? And if you do, why shouldn't we grant him a request?
Well, again, I look at why is he asking for this if he wants to continue the same? He says he wants to extend it in a number of days, and that's fine, as long as he's there. But we don't have that choice, the way y'all wrote the code. And if I may respond to your comment there, sir, I'm going to make a remark that you made earlier. I don't want to have to come before this board again or anybody else saying, look, I got a problem, I don't want y'all to renew the application. I don't want to keep doing that, just like you don't want to keep doing those tree items. So that's my issue, and again, that's the main heartburn with everybody that's lived there 20 years. I mean, we're talking about long-time people, and they moved there and they lived there, and they enjoy that because it's quiet, because it's peaceful. And Justin does an excellent job of keeping that. But you're giving him a door, and this changing use, in my opinion and in other people's opinion, is a line that's being crossed from, if there is such a word, residentialism to commercialism, because he doesn't have to be there. Now, he says he's going to be there, and that's great, but we're talking about, Mr. Boykin just said, the board can't do certain things because that's the way it's written. That's the way y'all's ordinance is written. It would be excellent if y'all would go back and say, okay, give him the 144 days, but he still has to be there.
Mr. Jones, I just want to clarify for you, just so you understand, this board has not written any of the policies that you're referencing.
Well, it's written right here.
This board does not write policy.
Okay.
So
Who wrote this policy?
the county,
Okay.
your
then I'm
county
sorry.
planning. No, I just want to clarify for you because,
County council.
yeah, county council, so to the degree that you want to affect policy, you and your group should actually contact county council
Okay.
and find out, because there are always readings of these statutes
Right.
and Zeldar and other things that affect your neighborhood. So this board can only, they're empowered to enforce.
Right.
I either give this gentleman an approval,
Right.
deny him, or table it to have him come back for something, in case they have questions. So I just want to clarify for you
All right.
that,
So you, yes, sir, and
Yeah,
you
and
brought me back to my point. We have to deal with the way it's written.
And if
The
I
way
may
it's
follow up.
written is he doesn't have to be there. Nobody has to be there.
but that's not, this board, again,
I'm just saying I have to deal with that. We have to deal with that issue.
Well, a couple of things real quick, just to follow up on Mr. Eugene's comments, and they were absolutely spot on. So the petition you had that I read isn't against this gentleman renting out his house, it's against the whole ordinance. That's how it came across. You're against the entire short-term rental ordinance. That's what
We're
you're.
against him rezoning to a
What-
different
all right,
type
let's-
of.
Let's back up a second. He's not rezoning. And this is where the thing gets a little confusing.
Okay.
His zoning on his property does not change. County council has said that it is a private property right to be able to do short-term rentals if you apply for a special exception. It's an approved use, but you have to go through a special exception. That's why it's coming here. And should you meet all three criteria, we would be bound by law to grant it.
Right.
So, like Mr. Eugene was saying, think about the county council being the legislature and the governor rolled into one. Executive and legislative branch all in one.
Right.
And then we're the courts, we're the judicial branch. We can neither change the law or misinterpret it or anything, so it's the playing the hand we're dealt. So your concerns were made and heard by all of us, but we are completely powerless to do anything about them. And so they would, like Mr. EJ said, they're better made to county council, and county council is in this very building, same place we are right now, and they have a public comment section at every meeting. And that would be the perfect venue to express those concerns there.
Right.
And be heard.
So my opposition remains in place along with the rest of the neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
That we are asking you all not to approve this. You say it's not a zoning change, but there was a zoning sign posted out there.
It's only a zoning sign because it comes through planning and zoning, and it's a notice to the public that there's a special exception before this board. You'll see the same signs out for the planning commission where somebody's asking for.
So what is it you call this then?
This is the Board of Zoning Appeals, and it has a very narrow function.
Right.
And a very narrow jurisdiction.
So what is it he's trying to do that he?
he's asking for a use that's been approved by county council. It does not change the zoning of his property. And it's not transferable. So if he sells his home, the new owner would have to come forward and.
The new owner does not have to come before the board to get a special exception. The permit follows the property.
Okay, but
However, the board can place as a condition for this permit that the property owner shall continuously be owner occupied. The board does have that power.
Okay.
All right, so
But it would only last for a year.
to clarify, myself and the neighborhood we are hoping the board does not grant the change in use. That would be the correct way to state it.
In this particular instance, and correct me if I'm wrong, he is already allowed to rent the property 72 days out of the year, and this is just a request to extend it to 144. Nothing else is actually changing, other than the number of days he could rent the property.
So that, I don't see that, that's not the way it's written as far as I interpret it. There are two things. He can extend 144 days, but in addition to that, he doesn't have to be present while the guest is there.
But I think that's already part of the ordinance, and underneath the 72 days with this zoning, he doesn't have to be present, is that?
It says so.
Doesn't have to be present on
It's
the
just,
parcel.
it's just gotta be
Property-
owner occupied.
His owner's address on his driver's license or voter registration has to reflect this address. He can vacate the property when a tenant comes. The city of Charleston requires something where they have to be on the property. Charleston County does not require the property owner be present while the property is being rented.
So that's the case now, even underneath the 72 days that he currently has. He doesn't have to be present if he doesn't want to be present.
So why is there a difference where it's listed then?
If I
Owner
may real quick,
occupancy, the owner occupancy definition refers to whether it's his voter registration, his legal address with the 4%. Therefore, it has to be verified by their voter registration or driver's license for the permit for the 72 days.
So owner occupied is just talking about the fact that he owns it. It's probably not written very clearly.
If it's his legal residence.
Right.
Mr. Jones, maybe clear this up a little bit more. So I know this gets really complicated. It's like running your finger down columns and going across lines and everything. But bottom line is, he's in the RR zoning district.
R4.
Well, I'm sorry, excuse me, R4, my bad. Hold on, let me go back. I'm sorry, R4. And running my finger down to that, he is allowed by private property right to rent the 72 nights without coming before this board. It says conditional, but the conditions are he gets a business license and goes through the site plan review with the county staff. He never has to come here, and he does he have to even be there? So he doesn't have to be there. So no matter what we do, if we didn't take any action, he still can do it 72 nights. There's not anything you can do to stop it because it's by private property. You could do the same thing in your house. That issue you have with that, you need to take it with county council. And now he's asking for additional days, and that's the only reason he's here tonight. He doesn't lose the 72 he's already got. He's just asking for 72 more. And so again, I'll say to you, if this board finds that all three criteria are met, we are bound by law to approve it. And so that's the predicament we're in. No matter how much y'all may not like it, it is simply out of our purview.
Our main beef was that the fact that where it says owner occupancy, there's a difference in the way it was.
If you let Mr. Danny look at it, I mean, that might be a question for him afterwards.
What that refers to is the property owner may or may not be owner occupied for this permit. Mr. Mysock is saying he will be owner occupied. However, if the board wants to, they can put a condition for this permit that this permit has to be continuously owner occupied.
Okay.
That's what that is saying. This is a may or may not be. So if the property owner was non-owner occupied, they could still apply for the special exception for this zoning district.
So-
His property is currently owner occupied, so he fits the criteria still.
So he doesn't have to stay there, though?
He does
In
not
either
have to
case.
stay in either case, no, sir.
He just has to show he owns the property.
He owns a property and it's his legal address, meaning it's reflected on his voter registration or driver's license.
So,
His legal residence.
Yeah. For example, if you had a vacation home, that's not your legal residence.
Correct.
This is not his vacation home. This is his
Right.
legal residence. He's owner occupied. Now, what Josh is saying is if Mr. Mysock sells it to someone else, that person may not be owner occupied. So he's saying that maybe to to add maybe a fifth condition that this one be owner occupied in case he does sell it in the future and then another person wants to come in and do it, it would have to be their legal residence. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I got it totally
sorry.
clear now. Okay.
My question is, how do you not stay at a house and it be your legal residence?
You could vacate, you could live, stay with a friend. If you have a girlfriend or a fiance, they could rent out the house and stay with them. We have short-term renters who do that short-term rental property owners who do that all the time.
The definition of a legal resident means you got this.
No, sir, the definition of the legal residence for Charleston County means that it has to be their voter registration or driver's license. Their address reflected on their voter registration and driver's license.
They don't have to live there.
I have to sleep there, sir.
Have to sleep there.
He's just telling the county that this is his proper place to receive mail, basically, and that it is the only resident in the state of South Carolina where he's entitled to a 4% tax assessment. He doesn't have to sleep there a single night.
So I can buy about 8 properties.
No.
You could,
on my
you
legal
only can have one.
No, you can buy as many properties as you want. You're only going to get the 4% assessment on one in the state of South Carolina.
You can't have your driver's license at 10 different places. There's only going to be one address on it, or your voter registration is going to have one address. And answer your question about how can somebody have that as their residence and not live there, there are a lot of people that have RVs and they travel the country and they still have a permanent home address. That's one example. Or so not trying to get all in the weeds with this, but is there anything else you want to say to us tonight?
No, we were mainly concerned that he wasn't going to be there, and we were looking at how it was written. That was our main concern.
Well, we're going to hear from him in just a minute after we get through the folks in opposition, and we'll ask him.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else care to speak in opposition? Come on up, sir. If you would, please state your name and address.
My name's Chad Walton, live at 148 Wapu Road.
Yes, sir. And if you would tell us why you're in opposition to this
I'll
application.
try and cut this kind of short.
Sure.
Following up on what Mr. Jones said, one of the biggest concerns in our community is the influx of traffic. There's been several Airbnbs down in Edgewater Park in the area that they have not allowed this to go on. They've shut it down at I think 72 days or whatever it is, because of the influx of traffic. From his house to the Edgewater Park Bridge is about 13 power poles. See, I've lived at that property since 2016 when me and my wife took ownership. Her family's owned it since the 1950s. Since 2016, every one of those power poles have been replaced. 2 people. There's been 2 fatalities within 1,000 feet of my front door. Charleston County's always out there pulling people over. They're always pulling people out of the marsh, and it's people that don't live there. It's not people that live back there. Both of the people that were killed didn't live down there. One of the vehicles with 3 guys in it that rolled into the marsh and sent another vehicle into my front yard where my son plays. That's just one of many of the accidents that we've had out there. And the big concern in the community is, him opening that up for the extra, double the amount of days. That's more traffic. I think he's got marked on there up to 7 parking spaces. So you're talking up to, at any given point, 7 more vehicles going up and down Wapu Road that don't live there, they don't know the area. That's a very scenic area. People are always out there, taking pictures. We love seeing the people out there enjoying what's in that area, but we don't like seeing is people not abiding by the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. We don't like seeing the fire department or the police down there, having to cut people out with the jaws of life when a telephone pole is laying over their car. We don't like walking our dogs down the street and almost getting hit by people that don't live down there. That's just a community in a whole. That's kind of my follow-up to that. I know that doesn't have anything to do with any legal mumbo-jumbo. I really don't care about that. My thing is, the safety of my family and my neighbors' families. When cars are ending up in the marsh, cars are ending up in our front yards, people are dying. We take, issue with bringing even more traffic into a dead end area. It's not, you don't cut through anywhere. It's a dead end. If you're not familiar with the area, that's all that it is. And that's our, my objection. Some of my neighbors' objection is the influx of the extra traffic.
All right, if you'll hold on a minute, anyone have a question for Mr. Walton? Go ahead, Mr. Marchant.
Just a comment. I mean, I'm very familiar with Edgewater Park and Wapoo Road, and there's a lot of houses down there that have 4 or 5 bedrooms, maybe a husband and a wife with 2 or 3 kids that drive. That's 5 cars. I mean, we're talking about 2 cars, maybe 3. So I'm just, again, I'm not trying to discount the horrible accidents and loss of life and all that is very important. I'm just trying to put it in perspective of a regular resident that lives on Wapoo Road. I mean, if Mr. Wysock were to bring on a spouse, that's another car. I mean, it's basically the same as renting out a room. So again, just to put things in perspective.
Okay, so we had his car, his new spouse's car, his 2 kids' cars, and then 7 additional cars on top of that. I mean,
it's a 3-bedroom house.
I'm just going over what the paper says, man. There's parking for 7 vehicles is what it shows on his application. I didn't submit that. He did. Okay, it's right there.
Anyone else have a question for Mr. Walton? I'm going to say one thing, Mr. Walton. And again, when I say this, I'm not trying to pick at you, but I do. When we were up here, we try to make statements relevant to the case at hand. And I hear your concerns about all the wrecks and all the people, and they're not from your neighborhood. I got that. I would contend that you probably don't have any evidence to present to this board that the folks involved in those wrecks were short-term renters. And I don't mean to be mean, but I have to say that because it's only about this case. And I understand your frustration, but it is a point to be made.
I understand, man. That's how the government works. That's why we're in the predicament we're in this area. Okay?
But you do understand that 72 nights a week, we're not even involved. That's a done deal. For everybody that's in that R4 district, they could all do it without ever coming for a board like this. So like I told Mr. Jones, this is an issue, the frustration y'all have is better directed to the county council in the public comment section and tell them what you feel. And the other thing you have to work with is every 5 years, I believe, ordinances come up for review, or 10-year review. So this ordinance will be up, whenever it's due to come up next, and it'll go back up, to be, I guess, basically restated or improved or changed. And there might be an opportunity, if y'all feel that way, to get involved with that.
Or their HOA.
Sorry?
Their HOA.
Oh, or your HOA. If you can get your people that live in your HOA to say they don't want this in there, their HOA rules trump.
We don't want a HOA. That's why we live back there.
I understand. I'm offering.
And I mean, the county needs to understand this. We've been bringing this up. I know Mr. Jones. I know all the other neighbors down there have been bringing up the traffic issue back there, and the county doesn't address it. The sheriff's office doesn't, the city police don't, the highway patrol don't.
The problem is there are public roads and you can't restrict people from traveling back there. I get your frustration.
You can't, but you have the power right now to limit people from coming back there.
Well, the problem is county council says we don't because they've made this a private property right.
Then why are people here to object to it? If you're
for
clearly not listening to anything that we're saying.
I'm hearing everything you're saying, but you're not hearing me that this is not the venue.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. I hear you. I've heard everything y'all said. I'm telling you, you got to come back to this chamber when somebody else is sitting up here, not us. That's what I'm trying to explain. We're like a court of law. We're not a legislature or a government.
I get it. Everybody here, I guarantee you when we leave, we're all going to be shaking our heads like, why were we even here tonight? Nobody has any problems with this man and what he's doing.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is what comes with it. And this is a appeals board where you're supposed to come in and address your grievances, but you're pretty much saying it doesn't really matter what you say. We have to approve it because the county council says we have to approve it.
We have to approve it if it meets the criteria. And nothing I've heard tonight, at least in my opinion, changes the fact that, in my opinion, he's met those criteria.
Like I said, we're going to discuss it. We have to go and find the legal loopholes to address, not our neighborhood concerns. Those need to be addressed to county council.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All
Amen.
right, we'll address that next term or whatever then.
All right. Anyone else to speak in opposition to this matter? That being said, oh, sorry.
Rebuttal.
Okay, oh, sorry, excuse me. Mr. White Mysock, would you please come back up for your 2 minutes rebuttal? Thank you, Mr. Eugene.
Thank you for taking the time to hear it. Frank, I know legally I'm not obligated to, but I can tell you.
Mr. Mysock, please address
You
the
can
board.
speak to us,
I'm
and he
sorry.
can hear you.
I'm
How
sorry.
about that?
Legally, I know that I'm not obligated to be there, to stay there, but that's my house. That's pretty much everything that I have right now, everything that I've worked very hard to get. And the house is beautiful. The yard is, the views are amazing. I can't buy that anymore. Well, I can't afford to unless I win the lottery. So I fully intend to always stay there. And if I'm not there, I don't trust people in my house without me there. So, okay.
Anyone have a question, Mr. Mysock? Mr. Nelson?
I'll just make one comment, Mr. Mysock. We do hear these requests on a regular basis, and oftentimes the neighbors don't know one another at all. And in your situation, it is refreshing to hear that the neighbors know everybody and that you're in communication with one another. And one thing that we would encourage is that you guys do that on a regular basis. If the neighbors have a problem with how you're administering your Airbnb, they need to approach you and it needs to be dealt with there so that everybody's on the same page within the neighborhood.
Definitely. I agree.
Anyone else? Mr. Mysock, I'm going to throw one quick one at you, and this is kind of also for the other speakers. You are aware that if you receive 3 substantiated complaints by the county, you can lose your right to exercise this. So there is a right of redress in place, so should there be a problem, your neighbors can go to the county, and there is a mechanism. And you know, if you do that, you may not get it renewed for the following year. So anyway, just want to make sure you understood that, and you know, you understand the provisions of the Charleston County noise ordinance.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. Thank you. You may have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Borkin, I just wanted to
Yes, sir.
address one thing that was stated. In order for him to renew every year, he does not have to come back before the board. That is an administrative thing that is done. However, like you did say, if he receives 3 complaints within the year, he is eligible to receive his short-term rental permit revoked.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. All right. That closes this case to public comment. At this time, I would ask the board for a motion. Thank you, Mr. Marchant.
Let me get my seeing eyes. In the case of BZA number 12-21-00545, I move that we approve the application as it meets all 3 criteria. It is compatible with criterion 1. It is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity, will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community. As we've heard in the testimony, the current home has been used for 72 days and is being extended to 144, and therefore meets that criterion. Criterion number 2, the property has made adequate provisions for such items as setbacks, bufferings to protect adjacent properties from possible adverse influence of the proposed STRP use, such as noise, traffic congestion, trash parking, and similar factors. As the applicant stated, and also as we heard in or read in some of the reviews, it sounds like it's been a very quiet process over the last 2 years with his guests, with really good ratings. Using Airbnb is fantastic because it allows you to track that. Haven't heard any complaints around noise or traffic congestion other than something that may happen with multiple guests, but given that it's a 3-bedroom house, I don't see that happening, especially since it's owner occupied. And it meets criteria number 3, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable STRP site plan review requirements of this ordinance. It certainly meets that criteria. given that he's been through the limited site plan review. In addition to those three criterion, we should add the provisions by staff. One, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the STRP limited site plan review process. Number two, the use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. Number three, this property shall not be used as a short-term rental for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. And number four, the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County NORS ordinance. That completes my motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Marchant. Mr. Nelson has seconded the motion. We now have a properly made and seconded motion. Is there any discussion on this case by any of the board members? Hearing no discussion, I will move for a vote. I would ask all those in favor of this application or approving this application signify by raising their right hand and saying aye. Aye. Decision is unanimous. Mr. Masak, congratulations. Your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you will receive by certified mail a copy of this final decision. At that time, you need to get in touch with staff, and they'll follow up with you on what else you need to do. Congratulations. I think that concludes all of the public business tonight for the BZA. Ms. Working, do you have anything for us?
Okay, so your next meeting is March 7th at 5 o'clock, and we have 7 new business cases. We will have our election of officers. Unfortunately, I think we're not able to do the annual meeting, but we are going to have boxed lunches, dinners to go. So either Savannah or I will be sending you some choices on sandwiches. They're fancy too, fancy sandwiches, cookie, pickle, chips, or a couple other sides. So we thought that that would be a compromise to give y'all your sandwich, your yearly sandwich, even though we can't eat it together, which is more fun, but. And I talked to Mr. Ray about it, and he said he'll eat his in the car. I was like, okay.
So are we going to come early on that date for the annual meeting? Or?
No, what we'll do is similar to how we did it last year. We just, before the minutes, we elected officers.
Okay.
And that's really
kinda
it. And then when you guys leave, we'll have the coolers and with your name on it. And you grab your box lunch, dinner.
Meeting items next time, I guess.
The agenda.
Yes.
We'll deal
the minutes for January. And
I missed it. We didn't have a.
It's okay.
No, thank you.
It's hard to keep track. That's why I have to have the slide.
Okay, Mr. March.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, is anybody rolling off of this group or?
No.
Okay.
No. No. Everyone's term is either to the end of this year or I think 2024. So hopefully in 2023, we can have a real annual meeting. And we'll get like a hot dinner to make up for the 3. We had our meeting in 2020, remember? For those that were there here, we had it. Yeah.
Well, I just
But
like
that
to
was
say,
it. Then we didn't have nothing for like till July.
well, I'd like to say thank you for the outstanding professionalism of staff and fellow board members getting through here without the courageous leadership of Mr. Ray, and I hope I didn't screw it up too bad. So with that, we are adjourned.
Okay.
That's big shoes to